what's happening essentially is globalization, the intersection of globalization, changes in demography, and the accelerating rate of science and technology. These three things are coming together, and where they meet in the middle is our Sputnik. So our concern is that these other countries are outproducing in numbers the numbers that we can produce. And this is sort of the Sputnik effect. We must rise up and compete with these other countries. What you need to know is that the population in China is so large that they have as many honor students as we have students. And we will never, ever compete with India or China on raw numbers. The American differentiation in the past in terms of our economy and today comes from our ability to do what? To innovate, to think creatively, to think outside of the box, or perhaps to even see entirely new boxes where people don't see problems at all. So it's our ability to innovate that makes us American. And what I would like to suggest to you and show you throughout this program today is that a focus on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics and education without the arts robs us of critical innovation skills. Demography. There's a lot happening in the world in terms of demography. One key point as Americans that we should understand is that 40% of the American workforce is expected to retire by the year 2015. And this started about 2 years ago. Now, boomers will either retire or stay in the workforce longer, but they will undoubtedly significantly restructure their work patterns. And as a result of boomers beginning to retire today and the projected retirement or restructuring of work by 2015, we have an interesting problem. And it is the ability to replace the wisdom and knowledge of the boomers in the workforce. So add globalization, the demography, and finally science and technology. According to his analysis, we will see as much new science and technology progress between the years 2001 and 2026 as in the past 100 years. Imagine all of the things that have happened in the past 100 years. Nuclear power, space flight, the human genome, fiber optics. All of these things happened in the past century, and Kurzweil is saying that we'll see it not only in our lifetime, but by the year 2026. He says further that in the next 100 years, we will see as much new science and technology progress as in all of human civilization. That's difficult to fathom. But what I'd like to do today, in the first section of my speech about technology, is show you how some of Kurzweil's 100 years of science and technology progress between 2001 and 2026 is in fact very real today. We can see it, we can touch it, and much of it, in what I focus on, will essentially be related to your industry, the film and new media and television industries, as well as others. So is the issue science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? The issues, as someone pointed out earlier, of the 21st century are war, environmental degradation, poverty, starvation. These are the issues, not only for the world, these are the issues of our communities: drug abuse, dropout, people in jail. These are the challenges that we struggle with in the 21st century. Issues of equity. The issues of competitiveness of our military, of our companies, of our students, and of our workers relate intimately to these other issues. But we should be drawing a bigger box if we're going to create boxes than focusing on science, technology, engineering, and math. We should get the issues in our sights if we're going to focus our dollars on trying to essentially outproduce these other countries in terms of innovation. The objective, ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, is creating the capacity for innovation. So we must shift in terms of our education system from thinking about STEM capacity, science, technology, engineering, and math, to thinking about the capacity for innovation. Put a different way, we need to think about connecting heads and hands. We need to think about creating thinkers and doers. It's not enough anymore to essentially produce people from an education system who have mastered knowledge. We must marry knowledge with skill. And the key requirement to connect knowledge and skill is essentially the movement of technology, or more specifically computers, into almost all domains of human endeavor. Computers and networks are the fabric of the 21st century. The car that you drove here tonight has as much computer power as was used to put man on the moon. Do you think every time you get behind the wheel of your car that you're driving a spaceship or as much power as a spaceship? Why do you not send your car to the guy down the road or around the block to fix it anymore? Do the people who work on automobiles, are they still mechanics or are they something more? These are some of the questions that we'll deal with in a very holistic way. I would submit to you that the opportunity for Central Florida, although you've made much progress, and I'll tell you how you compare against other emerging technopoly in the world, that your focus and your key differentiator and your key lead today in economic development, education, and employment, as Lucia pointed out, is creating Da Vinci minds. People who are whole brain thinkers, people who are whole people who can do as well as think. So the program is organized into technology, emerging technopoly, jobs, and education. In the technology analysis, what I hope to show you is that the future is in fact here. That things that we used to dream about, imagine, and think about at Disney and in science fiction films are in fact very, very, very real today. Now that's not all promise that science fiction and technology has come to fulfill this imagination. There's much to think about and criticize in terms of technology, and so we shouldn't be just swayed toward what's sexy or what's appealing in technology. But what I like to do is show you what's happening and how technology is very futuristic in science fiction like today. Second, in the emerging technopoly section, a technopoly or a technopolis is essentially a high technology region, a region that is focused on high technology as a key competitiveness differentiator on the world stage. A technopoly would be a place like Silicon Valley or Research Triangle or Austin, Texas. Does it surprise you that the Central Florida I-4 corridor has been selected as an emerging technopolis? A place that essentially could be someday the wealth creator that Silicon Valley was many, many years ago, and it still is today. I'll tell you about the other emerging technopoly and specifically focus on the Central Florida I-4 corridor and why we selected that region. Second, I'd like to talk about jobs, the changing nature of technology in jobs, and what kinds of opportunities are available to young people who are graduating from high school and looking at their college future and making selections about what kinds of jobs they might want to enter. And specifically, I will show you how technology has invaded almost every aspect of jobs, from Burger King to manufacturing to bioscience to nanotechnology to film, video, and other interactive media. And finally, I would like to talk about education. You know, Plato said it a long time ago. He said that essentially the republic was dependent on education, the ability of one generation to carry forward what another generation had amassed, that each generation successively was dependent on education. All of these problems, environmental degradation, poverty, war, the issues of low economic wages that you'd like to raise in a given region, are all dependent on education. Education is the absolute key. Welcome change. Are you surprised that I would start with a PS3 or a video game when I talk about what's happening in the world of technology? Many of you are saying, no, I'm not surprised at all. Did you know that a PS3 or an Xbox today operates at 1 teraflop per second? In 1993, the Supercomputer Association set out an initiative to create a single computer that operated at a teraflop in 1993. In 1994, Daniel Kay, who's now here in Florida, responded by saying our company Thinking Machines can take commercial off-the-shelf components and build a teraflop supercomputer for $100 million. Your Xboxes and PS3s have as much computer power as was used to solve the human genome. Do you think that there might be a more constructive application of video games than our current entertainment uses? That's a lot of raw computing power. Serious Games. Someone earlier said that they were part of a Serious Games company, a company projecting the commercial off-the-shelf video game technologies, both production tools and things like a PS3 or an Xbox, into purposes other than entertainment, into healthcare, into education, into social justice applications, into recruiting people into different fields of work. These are all relatively new applications of video games. You see, what many of us miss is that video games are not content. Lucia, video games are not content. These platforms are a medium and therefore on the same level as television and radio, but differentiated by their interactivity. See, a medium can send a signal, receive a signal, and store a signal. Not only are video games a medium, but they're differentiated from past forms of mass media because they are interactive. That interactivity is the key. Supercomputers for the masses. So the question for Central Florida is, what will we do? What content will we create to push down the pipes of the internet to land on this new medium called a video game console? It was said that these sorts of games would be the Trojan horse to open up video distribution and audio distribution and home banking. It's yet to happen. It's yet to happen. But all of these technologies are in place today, waiting for these new applications. Video games. Flight Simulator 10. What we're looking at when we look at video games today is very different than what I looked at as video games, Space Invaders and Defender and Centipede, right? Now I'm dating myself a little bit. Video games today approximate photorealism. So they're differentiated in that essentially what you have are high-fidelity visual environments that approximate reality. Secondarily, many video games today have an underlying simulation or mathematical model of the world. What does a simulation give us the ability to do? Well, in one case, it gives us procedural fidelity. So if in Flight Simulator 10 we decide to pick a 777, the cockpit and the instrumentation look and behave very much like a 777 Boeing would actually behave. That procedural fidelity is what is opening up an entirely new generation of educational technology, referred to earlier as serious games in one case. This is a serious game that I helped create at the DMC, the Digital Media Collaboratory at the University of Texas at Austin. This is actually a map of Iraq, a task organization for a tactical operations center, the battle captain, an Army battle captain. This is the radio, and each one of these computers represent Army battle command systems. We created a video game to teach battle commanders to make better decisions because much of the training that they were getting, we looked at, was focused on what they called buttonology. What sequence of buttons do I push to get to the map? Not when do I call up the map and when do I look at the 3 different rehearsal scenarios so that I can pick what we're going to do in a tactical operation. A serious game. A game used for a purpose other than entertainment. This is a triage game developed by RTI International. In fact, the US government has invested over $45 million in triage training-based games. They're now porting these games to Homeland Security and civilian use for Homeland Security. This is Rotterdam, the Netherlands. V-Step essentially modeled the entire city inside of a video game so that Homeland Security training across fire, police, ambulance, and other services could collaborate and practice scenarios and drills. So a game quiz. Let's see how much we know about games. I'm sure you guys are going to get all of these answers. What is the average age of video gamers in the United States? Okay, who thinks it's 12 or younger? Okay? And who thinks it's 13 to 25? Okay? And who thinks it's 26 to 32? You're right. So about half got it wrong and half got it right. The average age of video gamers in the United States is 30 years old. What does this tell us about video gamers? Video game play is a multi-generational phenomenon. Many of the kids coming into the education system today are products of parents who are video gamers. Notice that 19% of video gamers are 50+ years old and represent actually the fastest growing population of video game players in America. Now realize that we count, Yahoo games such as bridge or backgammon in these kinds of games. Now let's take a different cut at it. What do you think the percentages are if you look at male versus female online gamers? Who thinks males are more dominant? Well, actually, online, it's 56%, 44%, and if you notice the byline, women over the age of 18 represent a greater portion of the game-playing population than boys ages 6 to 17. Now, my mom says this is just not that hard to figure out. It's not true, she says. Women do like to hunt. They just like to run in packs and to kill with a really good reason. She did say that. Video games. Game Boys. Game Boy? How about a health and medical device to enhance the health of young people? This is a blood glucose test meter that's been plugged into a Game Boy, and it's actually a video game that runs on blood. So you take your diabetes test here, and your game character's health is derivative of your compliance to your blood glucose test level. I was just on the phone last week with the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston. They want to create a series of casual games that you play on your cell phone, and your cell phone will actually act as a pedometer, so that when you walk around, it'll count the number of steps you take, record your heart rate, okay, and allow you to take blood pressure tests on your cell phone, relay the data back to your doctor, and give you the historical information, essentially to manage your own health. But they want to create casual games on top of your actual health data that work the same way, where your health in the game is a function of how much exercise you get. There's a whole new world of possibility from the technologies that we hold in our pockets today if we just open up the way we think about it. This looks like a weapon system. I was actually here in Orlando at the ITSEC Military Training Conference, and what you see here is a guy looking into a weapon, but when he looks in, what does he see? America's Army, the video game. Pull the trigger, the rocket launches inside of the video game. Real-world instrumentation connected to video games give us the power of simulation. Games, on the other hand, which are very different than simulation, give us goals, give us win states, give us something called score, a form of assessment, give us the ability to compete, give us the ability to cooperate, and effectively engage learners by motivating them to learn. Jan Cannon Bowers at the University of Central Florida says that what's happening in the world today, demonstrated by this technology actually, is a merging or convergence of realities. A merging of physical reality, virtual reality, and imaginary reality. Physical reality is, of course, the reality that we share here today. Now, virtual reality, on the other hand, would be a reconstruction of something that exists in the physical world, like a building or this room. And imaginary reality would be sort of throwing Mickey Mouse into the virtual representation. So something that does not exist in the physical or virtual worlds is considered imaginary. Where do you think is the key place in the United States that practices this merging of realities? Disney. Have you been on the Mummy ride? Go to Disney next time and look and pick it apart. Where's the physical, where's the virtual, where's the imaginary? All of their new rides sort of blend all of this together so that it really creates a kind of new perspective. A key point about the echo boom generation, or children born between 1977 and today, is that this generation may in fact see the world, all of these realities, as sort of one reality, whereas we make a distinction between the three. A shift in worldview, very similar to the boomers who came up through television, and the cognitive scientists started running off saying, what are the impacts of television on cognition, higher order thinking? We're asking those questions today. Video games belong in the curriculum across just about every research discipline in the university. There are philosophical questions. There are sociological questions. There are questions of economics. There are questions of how we can use the technology in education. There are mathematical problems. There are computer science problems. But when you say games in the academy, what do most universities say? They have no place in formal education. Is that true in Central Florida? No. This is one of the reasons that I believe that you are different. You are relatively special compared to many other places in the world. Just the other day, on March 24th, the Army's RDECOM put up $75 million for the research into the application of video games to soldier preparedness and readiness. $75 million. Meanwhile, universities that are much larger than the University of Central Florida, under the guidance of people like Vice Admiral Al Harms, retired from the Navy, now heading up research and development there, do not even have game construction curriculum in their computer science and their media departments, much less in the other departments. At the University of Central Florida, Jan Cannon Bowers and Vice Admiral Al Harms are working on issues like how do you rehabilitate cognitive skills for soldiers that have hit their head against their Humvees when they were hit by an IED? How do you handle physical rehabilitation using video games so that soldiers who come back and are missing limbs or are crippled as a result of their injuries in the Iraq War can essentially walk, talk, and fit into society again? Video games, serious issues. This intersection of realities can be seen here in this screen. This is actually Otronicon. If you've been here to the Orlando Science Center when they host the Otronicon events, I came to the first one, and they had this screen that was actually on the floor. And above was a projector, and when it projected down on the floor, it would sort of change out every minute or so. So 1 minute it would be a pond of goldfish, and the next minute it would be kids running across the screen kicking the ball. Do you see the intersection? Here's the x-axis, here's the y-axis. This is imaginary reality, this is physical reality. This is the world our children are growing up in. This is the world that we have to make sense of as outsiders. And where is all this heading? People always say, Jim, you must know the next big thing. So let's get back to the cell phone. If you take a cell phone, how many of you have cell phones with video cameras in them? Right? Almost everybody. The future just caught you. You are carrying the future in your pocket right now. Hold up a cell phone. This is Nokia research. They're in New York, an MIT Nokia partnership. Hold up the cell phone, turn on the video camera, and you see the little red box? It's recognizing different things from the video. Press your mouse key, highlight the Empire State Building, click and see a menu. Maybe one of the items is trivia, movies, King Kong, and as you hold your cell phone up, King Kong, an animated character, will climb up and down the Empire State Building. You're holding the future in your pocket, and the window of development is probably 2 to 3 years. Imagine kids playing video games where they straddle the virtual world and the physical world, and they're looking around corners, shooting each other in schools with their cell phones.